Hey everyone! In my last video, I painted an Emperor's Spear Marine. But let's be honest, the Emperor's Spears are fine and all, but this isn't about the delivery system, it's about the payload. That lightning spear isn't just part of his kit, it's the whole reason I made this conversion in the first place. So in this guide, I'll show you exactly how I went about it. So full disclosure, I had no idea how I was going to paint this spear. Zero plan, I just knew I wanted the lightning arcing off the blade like something straight out of Dark Souls. This was all just one big experiment. First, I wanted a warm base to build off, so I gave the blade a coat of red. It was pretty transparent and dried dark. This was my first time using this paint, so I wasn't sure how it would behave, but I just went with it. And a quick heads up, I use an airbrush for a good chunk of this. It was a bit of an experiment with the colours and OSL, so I was throwing all my tools at it, but don't worry if you're not an airbrush user, I've got a special no airbrush guide in the works. I'm excited to share soon. Next up, I pre-highlighted areas of the blade where I wanted the glow to be strongest. I mix white ink and airbrush thinner. This makes the ink more transparent and easier to control while building up the volumes. Using white ink again and a brush, I paint a rough zigzag lightning pattern down the middle of the blade. The pattern was totally random, some areas thin, some thicker. I've got no clue if this is accurate lightning physics, but hey, it looked cool. Once I was happy with the pattern, I mixed luminous orange and airbrush thinner and applied several thin layers over the blade, with each layer tinting it more and more into a golden orange. To push the brightness even further, I went back with a mix of white ink and luminous orange, painting it onto areas I wanted to appear super bright and overexposed. Now here's where things got interesting. I'd never done physical lightning bolts before. I seen people online using brass rods, but I didn't have any. But I also remembered seeing this done with sprue, so that's what I did. I melted down some plastic sprue, I heated bits with a lighter, and stretched them out like taffy. If you do this, please don't actually burn the plastic. Pretty sure inhaling those fumes wasn't great for my lungs. Once I had some thin rods, I bent them with tweezers, hoping to create something that resembled a lightning bolt. I made a bunch at once to save time, giving myself options for placing them later. I also smoothed them out a bit with plastic glue, no idea if it actually helped, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. Next I base coated the bolts white and gave them a subtle orange tint using white mixed with luminous orange. Then came the painful part, gluing these things on, because I didn't plan positions ahead, I just slapped them down wherever they looked good. I wanted some bolts actually touching the Marine's armor, so I made sure to angle a few towards the armor panels. I dry fit the spear onto the model, positioning it so the bolts looked like they naturally arced onto the armor. But wait, let's rewind a bit. I already had OSL painted onto the armor, so let me quickly explain how I did that. Painting bright yellow-orange OSL onto light blue armor was a bit of a challenge. Honestly, I had no idea if this was going to work. In general, painting OSL onto any bright surface can be difficult, and since I was testing this on a fully painted Mini, I was a bit nervous. But hey, sometimes you gotta risk it for the biscuit. I start by airbrushing yellow ink over the arm and chest, avoiding the helmet because I wasn't sure how it'd react. I knew the yellow would shift to green over the light blue, which was intentional because green acts as a neutralizing base for red. Next I airbrushed a thin layer of bloody red over the top. The green helps the red look richer and deeper, creating a solid base for the orange highlights later. Then I highlighted some edges with white ink to mark the brightest points. Going back in with the airbrush, I carefully brought those highlights up to pure white, then luminous orange over the top to get that golden glow. Finally, I toned down areas like the rubber joints with a bit of thin black. Okay, back to where we left off. With the spear dry fitted, I adjusted the lightning bolts to arc onto his armor. I play around with this until I'm happy with the results. Once I was happy with the placement, I applied a final highlight with white ink with a touch of luminous orange, focusing on where the rods are attached. This helped cover the glossiness of the glue and add a bright focal point to where they connect. I finished up by painting over a few bolts again by hand to tie everything together. And there you have it. That's how I brought this lightning spear to life. Thanks heaps for watching, I really appreciate you sticking around. A massive thank you as always to my incredible patrons. Your support is what helps me keep making these videos. Like and subscribe, and check out my Patreon for even more tutorials. See you next time.